Welcome, everyone, to our weekly Monday NCAA.com March Madness look at the Power 36 and the AP poll top 25 and take some questions. This is the last Monday of the regular season. Next Monday, a number of conference tournaments will begin over the course of those couple of weeks or couple of days. A number actually in the one-bid leagues, although maybe not all. We'll have to wait and see what happens in the SoCon. We'll begin this week. So there's a lot to get to over the next week and a half. Selection Sunday, believe it or not, is 2 weeks from yesterday. So we are under the 2-week window, 13 days from Selection Sunday. The NCAA tournament starts 2 weeks, believe it or not, from tomorrow in Dayton, first four. Where has the time gone? It has flown by. All right, a couple things to keep an eye out here on NCAA.com and March Madness. Skype sessions on Monday with John Imarino, say that correctly, John Imarino. He is the commissioner of the SoCon Conference, the Southern Conference, makes his pitch for multiple bids. Fletcher McGee from Wofford, John Imarino from the SoCon. All right, Fletcher McGee from Wofford, one of the better shooters in the country. And Wofford, I think, is in the NCAA tournament regardless of what happens. They won out. They won their regular season undefeated in the SoCon. Wrapping up in the last 4 games, blew out Greensboro, knocked off Furman on the road, and then beat Chattanooga and Sanford on the road as well. So 2 Skype sessions with those guys. Coming up this afternoon as well, did one with Craig Smith, the head coach of Utah State, discussing the Aggies now as a possible at-large team after knocking off Nevada. Also discussed the post-game incident that happened with Nevada and Utah State. He couldn't shed a lot of light in because the investigation is still going on at Utah State. He did say, though, that he thought their game management did the right thing in terms of getting a rope to allow the players and the coaches and the officials from the opposing team, thus being Nevada, to get out. What happened in the back hallway, didn't speak to. That's clearly where the issue is with Nevada. He said he has not spoken to Nevada head coach, Eric Musselman. So we'll have to wait and see how that all develops, if there's any reprimands or anything that comes out of that. Bottom line is Utah State beat Nevada, and that was the kind of win they needed to get into the NCAA tournament as a possible at-large. Yes, they played a strong schedule, but I'm a big believer. You can't just work the numbers. If I'm on the committee, which I'm not, even though I work for the NCAA, and March Madness here, you still got to beat one of those good teams. They played a lot of them. St. Mary's is their best win. St. Mary's right now, to me, is not in the NCAA tournament because they have not had done enough as an at-large. So getting that win over Nevada was huge for Utah State's chances. On March Madness 365, our podcast that'll be posted on Monday night, an interview with Purdue head coach Matt Painter, who I think probably going to be the coach of the year in the Big Ten. He has done an outstanding job with the with Purdue and everything they've done. Carson Edwards probably not going to be the player of the year in the Big Ten. My gut is it's going to go to Cassius Winston from Michigan State. Also joining me on the podcast will be C.J. Massenberg from Buffalo. The Bulls, like Wofford, I think have done enough to be an at-large team, regardless of what happens in the MAC tournament. So that's significant right now for Buffalo. The fact that in the MAC and the SoCon, you could definitely have bid stealers if those 2 teams don't win their conference tournaments. I would also say now the same thing as in the A10, VCU, which, by the way, is now my top 25 of my Power 36. I got them at 23, nowhere in the AP poll right now. I think if VCU doesn't win the A10, A10 will get multiple bids. Right now, they're a 1-bid league, so there's a bid steal possibility out of the A10. Clearly, out of the WCC, if someone upsets Gonzaga, they will get multiple bids. That's another bid stealer. So for all of our discussion of power conference teams that have sub-500 records, and people are all up in arms over that, it may all shake out where they don't get in anyway because there could be bids that are taken away by these other leagues where they get multiple bids. So we got to wait and see how this all plays out. Before we get to some of the rankings, let me just say that I have to hammer this home. I'm not on the selection committee, but here's the deal on how they think. Every game is judged independently on its own merit. Okay? Conference standings are never looked at. Now, we can't say they don't know they exist. Of course they know they exist. Of course they know that a team like Ohio State or Minnesota or Indiana, all three in the Big Ten, are all sub 500 and may not get to 500. They understand that. So you got to look at each game individually. Who you played, especially in these unbalanced schedules. How many of the good teams did you play? How many of those good teams did you beat? Where were those games? Every game is judged independently. And obviously, conference affiliation may not say next to the team that it says the Big Ten, but you know, you're on the committee, you know what league they're in. So let's not be naive here. It just won't say 8-10, or in the case of a Big Ten team, 8-12, because now they're playing 20 games. And by the way, the 20 games is helping those bubble teams in the Big Ten because it gives them more opportunities down the stretch. Nebraska, Penn State last year would have loved to have 2 more games potentially against some of the top teams. That didn't happen this year. So in the Big East, same thing. Xavier and Georgetown right now are ahead of Seton Hall and St. John's in the standings. Seton Hall, I think, has played themselves on the other side of the bubble, but they do have good wins over Kentucky and Maryland. Maryland on the road, Kentucky neutral. But it may not matter if they can't win some of these games down the stretch. St. John's, bad loss, at DePaul. That hurts them. Xavier coming on strong, looking great here in the stretch, beating Villanova, beating St. John's. These are good wins for Xavier. They didn't do anything in the non-conference. So, same thing with Georgetown, with what they've done. Good wins in the Big East. Will it be enough? Some years it is. Will it be enough this season? Can they get across that threshold? In the Pac-12, as much as I want to be all in on Arizona State, you get hammered by Oregon. That really hurts them. Now they went and beat Oregon State on the road. That helps. But Arizona State has good wins. Utah State, Mississippi State, Kansas, obviously Washington. They beat the best team in their league. And I will say this again. I've said this consistently. I think if you want to get in as at large, especially in a league that doesn't have a lot of, maybe only has 1 bid or 2, you got to beat at least one of the best teams in your league, at least once. Give me that. So for Utah State, that's why it was so critical to knock off Nevada. In years past, with Gonzaga and the WCC, I want to see BYU or St. Mary's at least beat Gonzaga once. In the SoCon, now all the chatter of Furman and East Tennessee State and Greensboro, and you'll hear Marino discuss this, no one beat Wofford. And so you wonder, okay, can you get in at large without beating the best team in your league? Clearly they'd have to probably beat them in the tournament, and then if they beat them in the semis, lose in the final, that might do it. We'll have to wait and see, depending on how the bracket, where they face them in the bracket. So rankings. Gonzaga, Virginia, Carolina, we're very similar. I have Tennessee and Duke flipped right now because Tennessee had a better win than Duke for me this past week. And remember, Duke lost to Virginia Tech. And I know they're on Zion Williamson, but you got to judge them on what happened on the results. I went higher with LSU. I went higher with Michigan. Higher with LSU. Michigan, Texas Tech. They went higher AP. I have them just out of the top 10. I didn't ding Houston as much, losing at home to UCF. I think it's a good win, which, by the way, I moved up UCF all the way to 21, and UCF cracks the top 25 in the AP poll. Buffalo went higher for me. Cincinnati, higher for me. K-State, higher for me. They've got Kansas still higher. I have K-State higher. Trying to think what else here. Virginia Tech, we're very comparable here. Florida State, a little higher on one side than mine. Back part of mine, so I don't have Villanova anymore in my top 25 after what we've seen of late with Villanova losing. They did get the win, their most recent game over Butler, which was positive, but they lost to Xavier. And so I'm right now. I'm waiting on the Wildcats. Obviously, in the AP poll, they're still getting a lot of respect here. All right, back part. I gave some love to Old Dominion, Utah State. Old Dominion wins Conference USA. Auburn with a good win over Mississippi State. They're back in. Belmont, another team, by the way, that could maybe get in without winning their conference tournament in the OVC. Back part. I got Xavier. They're not going to get in, but this is an example of the difference of the rankings and the seeding. Xavier's playing great right now, so I want to give them some love in terms of how they're playing in the snapshot of our Power 36. And UC Irvine out in the Big West, just running through this league, Russell Turner doing a great job. Will be a candidate, I think, if there's some other Pac-12 jobs that may open. He's done a great job with the Anteaters, and they're clearly the favorite to get into the NCAA tournament. And we'll see, if they end up being a team that can get a couple of wins. All right, a lot of questions. Try to get to some. Matthew Parks about his Hoosiers. I know there's a lot of interest, love-hate relationship with Indiana. I will just say that Indiana's right there to possibly get in. Got to beat Illinois and Rutgers. End of the story. Got to do it. If they don't do it, forget it. Let's see here. What does UNC have to do to get a 1 seed? Well, right now, and we're going to do our next bracket, by the way, tomorrow afternoon. We're going to look at it. They're right there to possibly get one. So hold that thought. Washington won the Pac-12. Yes, I know that. And that doesn't mean they're going to get in. They've won the Pac-12 before and not received a bid. Dylan says that Virginia and Gonzaga are beatable. You know what? Everybody's beatable. Everybody. Okay. Trent, what's wrong with Iowa? Well, Iowa's been playing right on that edge consistently. Okay. Right on that line. And they've gotten burned. They've gotten the benefit of the crazy shot against Rutgers. They beat Indiana multiple times in the late possessions, overtime, Northwestern. Good shooting team. When the shots don't fall, they are very vulnerable. Are they secure? Yeah, I think they'll be in there. Yes, Colton. If Carolina beats Duke, they're a 1 seed. I agree with you on that. Does Cal really push Washington out of your Power 36? For now, yes. Doesn't mean they're not making it. Got to have a penalty for losing to a team that did not win a game in your conference. All right? And by the way, Cal was like the better team that night. They're not the better team overall. Texas, huge wins, Elmer, by the way. Huge win over Iowa State. They're going to be right there to possibly get in. I think they're in as of today. Maurice, how many teams from the Pac-12 get in? Can win the tournament? I would say Washington, Arizona State. I wouldn't sleep on UCLA. Could win it. Maybe Oregon State. Kentucky flew by. Someone said overrated. No, they're not. We both have them at 6, and they've fluctuated up and down depending upon results. I'd love to see a Kentucky-Tennessee number 3. We'll see if we get that in Nashville. Can Houston get a 3 seed? My gut is right now they're in the 4 range. Why does Kentucky get no respect? Okay. I'm sorry, Connor, I disagree with you. Tennessee and Kentucky have sort of moved up and down in that top 6 over the last couple of weeks. Right now, if I look at this, I think there's still a 1. We'll look at that tonight and we'll iron that out. Is Mark Few the coach of the year? Cristoforo. He's one of the candidates. Had to deal with injuries to Killian Tilly, Gino Crandall at times. Brandon Clark's one of the most improved players in the country. Rui Hachimura, the same thing. They've done a great job. Great job. Corey says Kentucky's going to take that 3rd game. We'll wait and see. If Louisville wins the ACC tournament, what's the highest seed they can get? I still think they're more in that 5-6 range, even if that happens. Zach says, which was the mid-major most likely to bust the brackets? I don't like the term mid-major, but whatever. You're going to see them on your screen right there. Belmont, Wofford. If you want to throw VCU in there, Irvine, Old Dominion. Those are all Buffalo. All those schools could win a game or more. Okay? Loyola or Drake, maybe, depending on who wins the Valley. Cody, you say that WCC is a one big league. Definitely. Well, it is, unless Gonzaga loses. So, little qualification. Do I think Brandon Clark could return for senior season, Frankie? Yes, although whenever someone redshirts, you have to keep in mind they've been in school for 4 years. So sometimes they're graduated, sometimes they're just done with college, and they want to come back for a 5th year. It's not coming back for a 4th year. It's a 5th year of college, 4th year of eligibility. A lot of times it's hard to bring those guys back, like it was Nigel Williams-Goss. He could have come back for that 5th year of college, 4th year of eligibility. Here's a good Kentucky fan who says, yes, we've gotten respect. We've lost 5 games. We're still in the top 10. Can Michigan be a 1 seed? You got to win the Big Ten tournament and then see if they get some help. So Chris wants to know if Izzo can get them deep in the tournament with a healthy Nick Ward. And the question is yes. He's done wonders with his team. I think it's either Painter or Izzo for Coach of the Year in the Big Ten. In the ACC, who's my Coach of the Year? I would say it's either going to be, it's tough. I actually may go with Roy Williams because North Carolina, the fact that they are in first right now or tied for it, they lost to Virginia. I think he's done a phenomenal job. I would go with maybe Roy Williams right now. My final 4, we keep changing this. Gonzaga, Virginia, Duke if they have Zion, but right now, no. I'm going to go Gonzaga, Virginia, Tennessee, and I think today I'll say Michigan. It's going to change between now and when I see the bracket. This obviously determines on matchups. What seed could NC State get? They're a double-digit seed. I think they're definitely not. Will Kansas win the Big 12? Well, I think they'll get a share of it. That's what I think will happen. They won't win it outright. So Dylan agrees with me on Roy Williams, ACC Coach of the Year. I would say that. Can 3 get a number 1 seed? Asked Michael. I'm going to say no because I think the loser of Duke Carolina on Saturday will take themselves out of the 1 seed chase after Saturday. So is CUSA a 2-bid league if Old Dominion loses? That's an interesting case. We'll have to look at that. Chance. Old Dominion did win at Syracuse. So you're right. That's another one, Willie, that we got to think about. That could be another bid stealer. Who's my sleeper, asked Chris. Well, last week it was Houston, and I don't deny that. Hard to have a sleeper as a 4 seed. But I could see Houston getting there, obviously. I could see Buffalo going on a great run, believe it or not. I'm looking at my rankings here. Even though Maryland struggle right now, I think they're going to have a good run in the NCAA tournament. Just so young, they make a lot of mistakes. But hopefully that'll clear up. LSU, if people aren't thinking of it, they certainly have Final Four potential, even though it wouldn't be a sleeper when your name is LSU. So, let's see. Most underrated team. Hard to say someone in the top 10 is underrated, but, I would look out for VCU and Florida State. Florida State is underrated too. UCF, Tony, yes, they're a sleeper. Very difficult matchup defensively with Taco. And they definitely, have, the senior leadership. Michael says, is Zion still my National Player of the Year? And the answer is yes. I think he did enough up to that point to earn it. He's the best player in the country. So I would say that. Why did Coach Cal not get nominated for the Naismith Award for Coach of the Year, Connor? Probably should have been on there. I agree. Should have been on there. So I can't tell you that why he wasn't there. It was a collection of people voting. James says, watch out if Kerwin Roach gets reinstated, which I agree. It certainly will change the dynamic and the narrative for Texas. Brad, what's the highest seed Cuse can get? I would say being in the 7 to 10 range. 7 probably the highest, 8, 9. Okay, Andy. UK is a 1 or a 2. I think it still needs to play out. See what happens in the SEC tournament. They're right there, right on the 1 or the 2 line. Is Cincy a possible 4 seed? Possible, probably not though. Radford, another team that could get a win if they make it. Yes, Frankie, I think Gonzaga will be the number 1 overall seed, and people will cry and whine about it. Does Oregon have a chance at the Pac-12 tournament? I'm going to say no. Will Temple get in? Yes, Jonah. And the Oregon question came from Sean. Let's see here. Got about 40 more seconds. Who comes out of the Ivy, Pat? I still like Yale. Yale over Harvard. That's my prediction there. Will Ward come back for the tournament? Stephen, I don't have inside info on that, but I will say they are hinting that he will be back for at least the NCAA tournament. And Michael says odds on Minnesota making, I think they'll make it. Question here about Zion over RJ Barrett. You know, this debate about who's the better player. Zion's going number one, though. Just get it out of your head. Owner, GM, they're not going to not pick Zion. All right, so appreciate everything, everyone watching, everyone throwing questions, reading all our content. Skype's on the site today with Utah State, the SoCon, Wofford, March Madness 365 with Matt Painter and CJ Massenberg. Tomorrow, Tuesday afternoon, our next NCAA tournament bracket. Check it right here, NCAA.com, and March Madness. We are in the last week of the regular season. As always, I appreciate all of you guys chiming in every form, even if it's constructively critical. I can take it. It's okay. Don't worry about it. And keep it coming. Thanks for watching, everyone.